Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Good to be back from a short time off. Okay, but very, very serious news. Everybody will probably recall the shock attack on Saturday by terrorists, female terrorists that were suicide bombers. And we had a spate of 4 different bombings over the weekend. The first at a wedding in Mararaba in the area, second at a security checkpoint, third at a shopping mall, and the fourth at a burial ground. All of that must have sent shockwaves of terror. However, the Nigerian authorities, the president has said that this will not go unresolved. It will not go unpunished, and that this was the throes of the people who had been dislodged originally from Gwoza before they had sort of taken it back. So to sort of find out, with the benefit of expertise and experience, how this had happened. Of course, they won't go calling people and say we're about to strike, but that there was still this kind of fight left, if that is the way to put it, in those terrorists who are suspected to be Boko Haram, people. And for that, we have 2 experts in the house, but the first of them is ready for us. Brigadier General Sani Kukasheka. Brigadier General Kukasheka, retired, is a strategic communications expert and former director of the Nigerian Army Public Relations. A fine morning to you, Brigadier.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Very well, thank you. A very sad incident, because the death toll has risen, as reported by local newspapers, to 23 from the original, number of up to 18 being circulated. So tell me, General, of course, this must have surprised everybody. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so easy. But how we also hear reports that in the midst of all that carnage, some suicide bombers were actually arrested. A couple of suicide bombers, I think, were actually reported. So how could this kind of a thing happen is probably the question you ask, because it must have taken everybody by surprise.
Well, first and foremost, this horrible act is condemnable, and my heart goes to the good people of Gwoza, especially the families of the victims, and my sincere condolences to all those affected by this carnage. Possibly to some people it might be surprising, but for anybody who knows the trajectory of terrorists and insurgents, you will not be surprised, because they are very, very determined and they are very resilient. And you should understand it is ideological. And those who have had contact with them will understand that actually they don't give up even at the point of death. So, and then when you look at the fact that multinational joint task force, in conjunction with the other countries, have embarked on concerted Operation Lake Sanity 1 and 2, displacing them in most of the islands, timbers, in the Lake Chad region. And the fact that Air Force have also commenced operation on the Mandara Mountains, where some of them have hibernating, particularly the Alungule faction, who has lost over 200 of his men recently. There is every likelihood there could be a kind of reprisal. And then again, this is rainy season and farming season. And most importantly, the fact that Gwoza community, peace has returned to the community, and people tend to relax and take things for granted. But of course, like I said, the terrorists are determined and unrelenting. So when you look at this aspect, you realize that it is not surprising, but at the same time, it is surprising. And you see the pattern of the attacks. They are well-timed and coordinated. First, a wedding, then of course they knew for sure people will sympathize, people will bury the people. They also, unleash, at the various gathering of the people. So you can understand it was well planned and coordinated. And the fact that I think some of the suicide bombers, they are not even indigenous or residents of Gwoza town, because there were instances or reported cases that they were even asking for direction. But so you should understand that actually they take and do advantage of the seemingly peaceful atmosphere and sense of belonging that the community offered, and betrayed that trust. So, but the most important thing now is to cater for the wounded, and then, of course, look at what needs to be done, because there is every likelihood the perpetrators of these heinous crimes are not far from the community within or the immediate environment. And that is why I commend the effort of the security forces for, embarking on cordon and search operations, so that if there are remnants of such people, they will be, arrested and, of course, dealt with. And most importantly, we should also embark on, security education and sensitization. Because if you look at it, Gwoza is so strategic to the Boko Haram. Remember, that was the capital of their moribund caliphate. And even the emir was killed by Boko Haram. And of course, there were so many Islamic scholars that were killed, along with their almajirs. I think over 72 of them. So that means to tell you that it is strategic to them. So they won't give up so easily like that. And people should not take things for granted. And every other person should not take things for granted. And neighboring Pulka and other surrounding villages, there are. In fact, there were instances at Guduf, on the mountain, and Mbombom and the rest. There were instances where the Boko Haram infiltrated and, launched attacks and so on. So, but they took undue advantage of these circumstances and infiltrated the community. So it is not surprising. But most important...
Sorry, I was going to say, as you said, this, if we needed it, has now become something of a wake-up call. The nature of the foe this time, women suicide bombers. Of course, we know that there are female soldiers, there are women soldiers all over the world, including Nigeria. But this level, you spoke about the ideological aspect, this level of acceptance of whatever the doctrine is that makes a woman, in fact, as you know, the initial report, the area report that the woman at the wedding had a baby strapped to her back. The suicide bomber at the wedding had a baby strapped to her back. Now, this level of commitment, I wonder if you were surprised about that, because most people would be, because we tend to look at women from a different perspective. But of course, now the gloves are off and everybody's a suspect. But that the level of commitment, did that surprise you?
Not at all. Because if you look back, there were instances where female suicide bombers detonated. And of course, we had an exceptional situation whereby somehow her conscience pricked her and she refused to, and then reported. And way back when I was Director of Army Public Relations, there was an instance where someone, as part of his contribution, donated his daughter to the Boko Haram cause to be a suicide bomber. And luckily, she did not detonate. But those things, so it's not surprising. But the most worrying aspect of it is that for the suicide bomber to tag along, minors, because whoever is being backed, such person could be less than 2 years old. And not only that, she was alleged to be, carrying along with her one other minor. So this is really, really disturbing and worrisome. If it is somebody like an adult female, it is not so surprising, because there were instances like that. But now this has brought in a new dimension. Where was she coming from? Is she coming from the IDP camp, and who saw her, and so on and so forth? These are the things. But I think with this effort, with the ongoing efforts of investigation and cordon and such, I'm sure these things will be unraveled. And then, of course, like you mentioned, it is a wake-up call. Know that we should not take security for granted, regardless of the circumstances. And let me tell you, the issue of war economy is real. People are benefiting from all this complex situation. Is it those that supply arms, those that supply information, those that supply logistics, and so on and so forth? So it is not surprising, because whoever is behind it really planned this and coordinated, in the sense that there could be other people. Because I think the last suicide bomber alighted from a tricycle and just grabbed the civilian JTF and the soldier. Luckily enough, they did not die. I think they sustained degrees of injury. We wish them speedy recovery. So these are the issues. So who was even driving the Keke Napep and all the rest? And you know, if you are familiar with Gwoza, so much as it's a big town, almost everybody knows each other, even though there are influx of IDPs, you know, at the IDP camp. But it's something that people have to be more security conscious to deal with this issue. And I hope and pray that the good people of Gwoza will cooperate with security forces and support them, so that these culprits will be pushed out, and most importantly, to prevent such reoccurrence.
I'm sure that the army probably is investigating, as we speak.
Yeah, they are. In fact, the theater commander has moved in addition to the brigade commander, but not just all the security forces, the police and others. And, the emergency management agency and so on. And it's very commendable that the state government also, as the acting state governor, has visited along with the senator representing the senatorial district. And we should rally around to give support to these people and support the security agencies, so that this issue could be fully investigated and prevented. Not just in Gwoza, but in the northeast. We cannot afford to have so many vistas of security challenges all over.
Indeed. And the other chilling fact was that a shopping mall was the venue of one of them. This certainly sends out a message to the populace that, look, people cannot be too careful, because they are no doubt, the enemy is no doubt looking at some aspects of complacency, perhaps, that has settled on the public to pull off this kind of a stunt. Just look at it. Right. These are civilian events and a civilian venue, a shopping mall, for instance. In terms of the sort of military psychology, what does this point towards? There are experts, I imagine, within the military that look at these kind of things. First of all, the mere fact that all of these, it was so coordinated. Started off at a wedding, then a checkpoint, then a shopping mall, and then a burial ground. So it looked as if they actually hoped that these would be linked. And more importantly, it points to the fact that they seem to have a very strong, what can I call it, command structure to get these people to do their bidding.
You are quite right. First and foremost, I mentioned it earlier on, it was well planned and well executed, because they anticipated, and they anticipated what could be the likely thing after the first detonation. People would be rushed to hospital, so they went to hospital. People would be buried, and there could be, condolence visits. They also went there. And of course, checkpoints usually. So basically, it was well planned and well coordinated. I think the only thing now is going back to the drawing board, emphasize on security education and more security consciousness among the people. And I can rest assure you, a lot of people who have seen things with the benefit of science side, they will start talking, and the pieces will be, put together, and we'll have a clearer picture. But most importantly is to coordinate the people and the security agencies to ensure if there are remnants of such people are fished out. And then, of course, to go after the perpetrators. But, of course, they know for sure Alingule definitely could be the mastermind behind that, because he has been severely hit, and they are moving from helter-skelter with the concerted military operations and what have you. So they thought of this option, which, remember, suicide bombing had been with them over time, you know, and they lacked the capacity to detonate IEDs because over 65% of their IED experts have been taken out. So there are a lot of factors. So, but most importantly, we should not take things for granted, particularly those living within those areas, Gwoza, Hulka, you know, all the villages surrounding Mandara Mountains and all the rest. But of course, most importantly, the military should continue with the, you know, continuous onslaught, especially on the Mandara Mountain, Gudub and what have you.
Yes. I imagine that our neighbors, like Niger Republic, are probably going to sit up and take notice because they were involved in the last...
Including Cameroon. You know, the Bandara Mountain borders more with Cameroon than Niger.
Okay. So those neighbors would certainly have sat up and taken notice that, you know, not yet Uhuru, even though I think I mentioned it earlier, they were dislodged with the help of some of those neighbors. That is, Boko Haram was dislodged when they first of all had seceded, taken the place, and Nigeria had taken it back. But this is what you were saying earlier. They're so resolute, so determined that they've come back when we least expected it. And this is going to be pointing to, as you said, heightened attention all around. Maybe informing the people that it's not. There's no time. As you were saying, I don't even know where this is coming from. Where were these cells? Where were they prepared? Where were they trained? But all of that, I'm sure, the military will let us know the much of it that they can let us know when we get to it. But it is still so shocking. Maybe one sees women as the fairer sex, and because of that, don't expect them to be involved in violence. But it's a matter of indoctrination, and as you pointed out, it's not new to them. They've been into this. Does that mean that the job of security is now sort of doubled? Because I imagine perhaps people had concentrated on the usual the usual culprits when it comes to security, mainly men, generally speaking. But now they know that that's been thrown out. Now women can be as dangerous as the men. It has been proved. Does that put an extra weight on security? One moment, General. Somebody has called in. I didn't hear who it. Tell me who called in. Well, good morning. Somebody called in from Ikeja. Good morning to you. Mr. George. Good morning, Mr. George.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Greetings to the
Brigadier General.
Yes. Uncle Yori, I think it is time to tell the northern traditional rulers that they are not cooperating enough with our military in this war. Why am I saying that? These suicide bombers, they come from Sambisa forest. Even if they did, how did they know that a wedding is taking place and all those events that they went to attack people? Who gave them the information? It's the members of the community. If you recall, Uncle Yori, severally, many of our soldiers have been killed by Boko Haram through ambush. And it is the information they get from the communities there that they use against our soldiers. The traditional leaders don't seem to realize that they have a duty to cooperate with the military. The military alone cannot win this war. But it appears that the community members, they prefer to feed the Boko Haram with intelligence than our military. I stand to be corrected. The president needs to call the traditional leaders in the north, not only in Gwoza, not only in Borno State, but in those main war zone states generally, to let them know that the government needs their cooperation.
Yeah.
That's just the point I have on this matter this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. George. Your thoughts, General?
Yeah, you see, in this modern day of technology, Internet of Things, That is what is called open source of information. So the insurgents themselves, they can get information from anywhere, just like the security forces do. Human intelligence, use of technology, and so on, so on and so forth. So knowing about when and where it will take place could be from any source. It could be from human intelligence. It could be from, people advertise things by word of mouth. I remember it's a community where almost everybody knows each other. And in most instances, there were those insurgents that are still in the bush over the mountains, and some of their family members are still within the community. So there are a lot of people, a lot of sources or ways of getting information. But most importantly, I think is the issue of understanding that these people are so determined and they are very resilient, so they hardly give up even at the point of death. So the earlier we got to know that and understand and passion out way of dealing with that, the better for all of us. Now, you are talking about gender issue. I think the military or the security forces have realized that, and they have started mainstreaming gender. Take, for instance, the Nigerian Army that at a certain point I was the Director of Army Public Relations, has come up with even a whole core for the female, gender, to the extent that they are performing very, very well. I think there were instances along Kaduna-Abuja Road, and there were instances in here in the FCT, particularly towards Kepi, and of course, even in Lagos. So it is in realization of that. And it is not just the issue of intelligence gathering or even, searching and what have you. So it is not something, the security forces are quite aware of this fact, the dynamism of the, security challenges, and they are rising to that occasion. And it is to that extent that even the Army now has an aviation corps, now with helicopters inducted and so on and so forth. So these are the things. So it is not as if they are being, overstretched, so to speak. They are. But all they require is the support and understanding of the larger society. And when you are dealing with insurgency, when you put it on 100% scale, the kinetic effort, which is the military component of the coercive effort, is less than 35%. So that what happened to the 65%. So there are other components of Nigerian society that ought to be doing certain things that will complement the effort. So the question of carrot and stick, or kinetic and non-kinetics, come into play. And government has a leading role to play in those instances. And you cannot.
I beg your pardon for a while. Sorry, General. I beg your pardon for interrupting you, General. So sorry about that. But Mohammed in Abuja has been holding on for a while, and I was trying not to lose him. Mohammed, thank you very much for holding on all that while. Go ahead now, if you will.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
Uncle Yori. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, I quite agree with the General, because I listened to him in Arise TV with one of the lecturers from Delta, and he suggested the AI intelligence system to be used for detecting all those issues of insecurity. And the director in that university, he mentioned that sabotage, and then issue of making money with insecurity is one of the major problems, and then corruption in the system, either in the security system or in the politicians or whatever. Because this bombing cannot just happen. You can see those people that detonate those bombs. How can you imagine that 6-year or 5-year girl can now have a mind to put bomb to go inside a gathering of wedding? That is impossible. It's just the issue of poverty. Number one, the president should solve the issue of poverty. That is the first thing. Because I believe they may have given the woman just 1,000 or 2,000, take this thing, enter there, then the man that is detonating is aside. When he saw them enter, he can now remove, it's a remote some issue. So the issue of poverty, the president should solve that issue first. That is the first thing the president should do, to solve the issue of poverty. Poverty created a lot of issues, Mr. Yori, and then the general knows that very well. Poverty is one of the first issue, because the director in that university, he said the insecurity, and then about, he mentioned insecurity and then hunger. Solving insecurity is easier than solving hunger. So hunger is one of the basic problems we have in Nigeria today. So the president should look into that. Let him solve that problem of hunger. Because a small money will make you to go and enter everywhere. Because you don't know what you are carrying. Those children, those women, they don't know what they are carrying. Assuming they know that they cannot eat that money they give them to go and detonate that bomb, they will not do it. But because they believe that they have 1,000 or 2,000, let them go and put that in there and then come back and eat their 1,000. That is the meaning.
Okay.
Wallahi, I'm telling you, Uncle Yori, hunger is the number one issue in Nigeria today.
Okay.
Let the president tackle hunger first. We will now get solution in this issue of insecurity. I think that is no. The general knows about it. He knows what I'm saying.
Okay.
He knows. He's just diverting. But
Thank
he
you,
knows
Mohammed.
that hunger is number one everywhere, not only in Nigeria.
Thank you very much,
So
Mohammed.
have a nice.
Okay, appreciate your call. General, you heard him, but we were speaking earlier about ideology, and no matter how warped it is to the ordinary member of the society, you said that they have been indoctrinated and that they are resilient, resolute. But here is Mohammed saying that he wouldn't put too much stock on all of that. It all comes down to poverty and hunger. How would you respond with the intermix between what he says and what you said earlier, that these are terrorists that seem to be they seem to have a very tight rein on, their commanders have a tight rein on them?
Well, you see, first and foremost, when you look at how Boko Haram started, where we are now, so ideology plays a very important role. And of course, quite rightly, to a large extent, the present circumstances we found ourselves is also a trigger and contributory factor. But you can only juxtapose it with the other security challenges. Take, for instance, banditry and kidnapping. Basically, it is for commercial purpose. But we have had instances where Boko Haram is ideological. And I have personal experience. I served in one division between 2012 to 2014. And that time, Boko Haram was trying to gain a foothold on the northwestern part of the country. One division that time, its area of operational responsibility cut across 10 northern states, unlike now that we have 8 divisions and so on. Now, there was a particular IED expert that was coupling IED in Rigasa part of Kaduna. Unfortunately, or fortunately rather for him, for all of us, for good people, unfortunately for him, the bomb prematurely, detonated and killed him. His wife was there. She refused to open the door till when she mopped up everything. At the end of it, the door has to be broken. And when it was broken, they wanted to, of course, that time, there wasn't much female soldiers to. When they made effort to, handle her, she started protesting that no pagan should touch her. And we have had instances, the judge is there. When she was sentencing a terrorist in the Gwoza project, they asked him, what father? He was asked, why did you kill your father? He said because he was on the wrong path of the religious belief. His own skewed religion told him that his father was wrong. The father that killed him. And he said that, look, if he gets similar opportunity, he will still kill the father so that he will not commit more sin. Do you attribute such things to hunger? And then we had an instance that I said somebody, when I was Director of Army Public Relations, donated his daughter to be a suicide bomber as part of his contribution to the cause of God. So when you look at all those things, you cannot say it is only hunger. There is no doubt about the fact that Nigerians are living in precarious situation. Things are not easy. And I am even in a better position to tell him about hunger, simply because I can mention 10 to 20 people that I know, I am so sure they may not even eat today, because I come from the rural community too. So it is a contributory factor. But to some extent, in some of these criminal activities such as banditry. But for Boko Haram, ideology plays a very important role. And it is only the indoctrination. And remember, even in those days, the suicide bombers, how did we come about, people disembarking on a motorcycle when approaching checkpoint? Because they realized they used to tie the suicide bombers to the motorcycle so that they would not run away, because they were being coerced to commit such atrocities. So it is a combination of so many factors, including the hunger that he's talking about, but ideology. And the earlier we confront both of them, the better for all of us, because there is no way you can educate somebody and to have a cordial relationship with even his neighbor if he's hungry, or talk less of the seemingly divisive tendencies between the led and those leading. So we have to close that gap, and the way to close it is to deal with the social socio-economic circumstances of an average citizen. And by the way, security challenges basically are predicated on three things: the political atmosphere, the social atmosphere, and the economic atmosphere prevailing in that society. So you have to address, and that is why we kept on talking about kinetic and non-kinetic. With the non-kinetic, it's about 65%, more than 65%, which is question of using stick and carrot. Well, the security forces are doing the best they can, but there are other things that need to be done. Take, for instance, the local government system is not working. Some of these security challenges could easily be dealt with at local level. And, people could even have loan facilities and so on and so forth. So the issue of good governance come into play so that people will, have better things to do. And, of course, they will not be walking about with an empty stomach. And they will not be enticed into criminal activities. So he's quite right in that aspect, but at the same time, Boko Haram should not discontinent the issue of ideology.
All right, then. Professor Edmund in Enugu, thank you for calling. Thank you for your patience. Go ahead now, Professor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yori. It's been a pretty long time for now. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. First of all, let me commend that Brigadier General. I've been listening to that man over a time when he was public relations, whatever, in the military. Very intelligent.
Public relations director
young man.
In the Nigerian Army.
Yes. Very articulate military man. However, let me be frank with you, Yoni. The problem is not hunger. Nigeria is not the only hungry country in the world. Our problem is governmental. Our government is not serious in solving that insecurity problem in the Northwest and generally Nigeria. So the government must call a spade a spade. We've been treating this insurgency with kids' gloves. So kinetic method should be the priority, not non-kinetic. Because even if you apply non-kinetic, if you don't dissuade those people from committing such heinous and atrocious crimes. So the government must be blamed. This issue of insecurity in Northwest and Northeast has festered for a very long time, for more than 14 years now. This is a challenge to the government and the military in particular.
Indeed. All right.
There seems to be a general lack of unity of purpose amongst Nigerians to solve that problem. Let me be frank with you. Some people are benefiting.
Okay.
Some people are benefiting from that insurgency, including the military people that are benefiting.
All right, then. Well, thank you very much for calling in, Professor. We'll take a break now, but also to just to tell you, when we come back from the break, Professor, General, you'll be able to react to some of the things that Professor Edmund in Enugu has said. As we go on break, just to alert our viewers that they can continue watching us on YouTube, for example, and that's apart from viewers in the diaspora that will be unbroken. The communication will be unbroken. But we'll be shifting to the Federal Capital Administration, where it is welcoming Honorable Tajuddin Abbas to the Mabushi Bus Terminal Flag-off Ceremony. All of that will be, as we go on break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
There is always more to a story than the screaming headline. The part of a story that is not told casts a shadow. It's like the part of an object that is not reached by light. On TVC News, I'm able to explore the many angles there are to a story, talking to stakeholders, asking the difficult questions, and digging for facts. I believe the viewers are able to make a better decision if they're well informed and understand not just a part, but the complete story. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Doubt and fear doesn't occur at the canvas, it shows in the canvas. It shows the conation of raw earthen material slabbed, stroked and molded at a pace provided by the doubt and fear. Every move way in the struggle of one to the other, merging the past to the present, brushstrokes of colors seen but not known. For when the wailing stops, the pieces settle down in abject beauty erected for a century of a century. Speaking, advocating, protesting as the arts are meant to be.
Sometimes it's the story that calls. At other times, the people just want to be heard.
School, I need students, but I need teachers.
Can't continue like this.
Their voices re-echoing through time itself.
We haven't done anything. If the tide is high, everybody run for safety.
Their tears leave a sweet sour taste for all their demands. A familiar call beckoning for change in our world.
Integrity in the whole campaign against these people. His allegation that so many diverse people are actually benefiting from the insecurity, and so in between a lack of loyalty and sabotage, it's making the whole job more difficult. How much stock do you place on this particular aspect of the challenge, that we have enemies within? Because if we were to be able to wipe it out, and that is wipe out this reign of terrorists and terrorism, then a lot of people will be out of remuneration, out of money, because they are actively benefiting from the continuance of the situation.
I think I would like to thank the professor for his kind words, and as a matter of fact, it may interest him to know that I was in Enugu for almost 9 years, so we can understand ourselves better, me and him. By the way, I think he's just referring to the concept of war economy, an economic system that revolves around complex situation. People benefit from it, so they would like to perpetuate it. Take, for instance, despite the fact that these terrorists are committing heinous crime, to someone, supplying logistic or information to him is just a business. The issue of morality does not even come into play. But of course, there are other things that fuel it. Take, for instance, drugs, weapons, and information, and so on and so forth. So it's quite right. And of course, corruption is one of the bane of the Nigerian society. And it cuts across various sectors. And then the earlier it is addressed, the better. But most importantly, it is not the issue of corruption, but an issue of governance. There is no way you can be dealing with security challenges with a divided house. Therefore, each component of Nigerian society has to be brought on board. In fact, it is no longer a whole society approach, but a whole nation approach, in the sense that each and every one of us has a role to play, regardless of the extraneous variables. Religious belief, political affiliation, gender, and so on. Everybody has a role to play. But of course, the government needs to mobilize all of us to have a sense of direction, so that the issue of security is faced squarely by each and every one of us, so that right from the commander-in-chief to the last man in the trench, the armed forces or the security forces are on the same page. Right from the president down to all the leaders, regardless of either political, religious, community leaders, and the man on the street, they are on the same page. They have agreed that, look, We are facing an existential threat, so we should face it squarely. So each and every one of us, just like the national security strategy has envisaged, and but I think the issue is issue of coordination and having the political will to ensure. And of course, most importantly, giving timelines and emphasizing on monitoring and evaluation. So with this kind of, if these things are followed, most of the challenges that we're having can easily be, they might not necessarily be eliminated, but could be minimized. And that will even address the issue of the hunger Mohammed was talking about. Because if there is good governance, there will be good policies that will impact on the people. And the people will have a sense of belonging, they will contribute. Why is it in other climes, people are far more security conscious than in this climate? Simply because they don't think to be active stakeholders in the Nigerian state. And we have to give them more sense of belonging, and the sincerity of purpose to a large extent will help in doing that. And it will even make the security agencies' job much, much easier. We have time-tested conflict resolution mechanism. We shouldn't allow issues to escalate. Why don't you take advantage of this national unity building? There are so many groups, youth group, women group, the traditional, the religious leaders, each one of them has a role to play. Harmonize them. And of course, those that are elected should be more accountable. And you will see that things are getting better.
Okay. Abdul Samad in Abuja. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, sir. Hi, Boko.
Very well, thank you. Please go ahead.
So please, honestly, may God be with you, sir. Good morning, sir.
Amen.
Good morning. Please, I have a problem, sir. Hello, sir.
Go ahead, Abdul Samad.
Abdul Samad, I think we are hearing you.
We're hearing you
also.
There was a
Unfortunately, we lost him,
echo.
right?
Yes, unfortunately. Now, of course, the world has reacted to this. It's a global village. Everybody heard about this virtually as soon as it happened. And there have been, thoughts from around the world. For instance, we hear that Amnesty International has bemoaned the situation. Indeed, they are saying that the needful has to be done so that the gains that we have made as a country, that is our, defense forces have made for us as a country, are not rolled back against Boko Haram. Indeed, that thought is out there now that, well, with Boko Haram coming back in this way, I don't know that they have actually verbally claimed it formally, but everybody is highly suspicious of the fact that it just could be Boko Haram. Do you feel also, General, that along with those who are making that commentary, gains against them are being pushed back now, rolled back on, and that we might not be in as good a place as we were before? Or might that be a hasty kind of conclusion?
I think it might be a hasty conclusion in the sense that when you look 15 years ago where we were, in fact 10 years ago, where we were and where we are now, there is, noticeable difference. You understand? You remember way back, here in the Federal Capital Territory, all the symbols of security and democracy were desecrated. The UN building, the police headquarters, Mogadishu cantonment. Then, of course, Banex Plaza, the bus terminal. And moving from point A to B, the number of checkpoints. In fact, you are not even so sure when you go out to work whether you come back alive. Remember Madala and all the rest of them.
It was very bad.
These guys have been pushed back to northeast to, in fact, Borno State to Sambisa, and Lake Chad. So, and I know countries like Colombia, they spent 58 years fighting insurgency. But here we are. We made substantial progress against all odds. Remember, the Lihi law was used against us when we desperately needed the weapons to fight these criminal elements. They were denied us. So against all odds, we made substantial progress. So I think we look at this, even though it is so painful, so horrible, but it should be looked at as an isolated incident that we need to put our acts together. People should not panic. They should rather cooperate and support to ensure that it did not happen. We have had several instances of higher, casualties than this. So I know it is worrisome and it's disturbing, and that is why our hearts are with the good people of Gwoza, and it is heartwarming that Amnesty of all organizations understand the fact that we have made substantial progress when they are even among the antagonists, when the military were fighting the insurgents at the very beginning. So it is heartwarming. So I think we need to rally around to support them, to ensure that the right thing is done, more security consciousness. Those that aided and abetted these dastardly crimes are fished and punished. And of course, from there, we take it on. It is not just Gwoza. It is not Polka or any other place. Everywhere, people should be mobilized to be more security conscious. Like I said, one of the suicide bombers was not indigenous to the community because he was even asking for direction. Under normal circumstances, the person she was asking ought to have been more security conscious and understand that she looked odd and she was looking restless and alert the security forces. So these are some of the issues, and so many things like that. So I think
let me say, General, I beg your pardon, General.
People not to panic.
Yes, okay, I beg your pardon, General. Let me bring on Funsha, who has called in from Minna in Niger State. Good morning, Funsha.
Uncle Yori, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Yeah, welcome. Uncle Yori, good morning to your guest too.
Yes.
Uncle Yori, let me start by saying, let me just start by saying, let me comment on what the professor has just said. You see, I believe people are benefiting from these things, really. But the person was saying the military are benefiting. I disagree with that because. Why will somebody like to be in war forever and not wanted to live? I don't think that is possible. The military are putting in their best, dying every day with this insurgency. How will you tell people that, who are involved in taking this? I'm not totally disagreeing with him, but I don't think the military would be happy to be in war throughout their lifetime. No, I don't think. See, this security is everybody's problem. Everybody's problem. That's one. Number two, the communities.
No, sorry, Funsho. It's not the military that wants a continuation of the engagement.
No, what I'm saying, the professor said they are benefiting.
Well, that certain people, you're right. He did accuse.
Why would you want to be in war? No, nobody would like to go to war and come back.
Yeah. But we'll find out from the general. I don't think that's the mainstream of the army, but we'll find out from the general.
Now, the communities too. They are the activists, what have you, the chiefs, the enemies on the local government. They are the people. They should talk to them. They should talk to them. The military are trying their best. I believe the military would not like to be in war forever.
Okay.
I think so. Please. The military, they should give them kudos because they are putting in their best. They are people's father, they are people's uncles, sleeping in the bush every day while we are sleeping in our house with our family.
Okay.
Please. Thank you very much.
All right then. Thank you very much. Brigadier General, what do you say to that? Because, yes, that call-in had said that you can't even trust everybody within the army. So I was trying to interject that it's very unlikely that that would be the mainstream of the army, but there will be bad eggs perhaps, but it's not really a question that I can respond to. How do you react to that position, sir?
Yeah, I understand where he's coming from, and I think it's quite understandable, and it is very true, simply because, and if you make reference to my earlier talk, I made mention of time-tested conflict resolution mechanism that we shouldn't allow things to escalate. It's a very reference to the fact that actually the military, ought to have been some of the security challenges ought to have been dealt with so that the military can concentrate on others. Take, for instance, where in the midst of fighting terrorism and insurgency, suddenly another beast came up, banditry and kidnapping in the northwest. Now it is a security challenge that is of its own, that in fact the people of the northwest are facing existential threat. And what is it? It's just hardest farmers' conflicts or clashes that was mishandled. And that is how it brought us to here. And if you look at even at the onset of the Boko Haram terrorism, way back 2009 or thereabout, when they were cleared out of Maiduguri, the ringleader, Mohammed Yusuf, was arrested by the military and handed over. But unfortunately, simply because there was no coordination and everybody is not on the same page, the extrajudicial killing, and this is how we are brought to where we are now. So the thing is, there is a lot to be done in terms of mobilizing the components of Nigerian society so that people that are supposed to be doing certain things, they do it and they do it very well, so that the military will be the last option. We are even so lucky that we are surrounded by good neighbors. For instance, if God forbid, Niger or Cameroon decide, or Benin Republic decide to chance Nigeria, what will you do? I mean, where will you go to, or what will you do?
Let me squeeze in, General, I beg your pardon, General. Let me squeeze in Mazi Okorafor, who has just called in. Mazi Okorafor, 30 seconds, please. Go ahead.
Honestly, look, local government should provide what we call drones, number one. Number two, the vigilantes we have should be proactive. That is, government should encourage that, the local government authorities should encourage that. Gather their team, 2 forces to between that work. And this issue of people sitting down waiting for government to do that, it's not possible. And people, before they do any ceremony, they should have a guard or that security agent to guide them. I mean, the local vigilantes, I didn't say to go and bring police or soldiers, bring vigilantes to guide everybody coming in and going out, you search them at least.
Okay, Mazi Okorafor, I beg your pardon, we've completely run out of time. I have to give the General time to comment on your contribution. He's saying that don't wait on government for everything. Self-help can also be of help here, of assistance here, when we're talking about warding off this vicious foe.
He is quite right. In fact, I was coming to the fact that we are talking about good governance. The local government system is not working. Very few are performing optimally. So I think there is need for the local government system to be up and doing, so that some of these security challenges, actually they are local. And if the local government system is working, the people know themselves, so they can easily deal with it, and they can secure themselves better.
Okay, General, we've completely run out of time. We've completely run out of time. But I want to thank you very much, sir, for coming on. Brigadier General Sonny Kukashenka, retired, strategic communications expert and former director of Nigerian Army Information. He's been our guest today. Thank you very much for your insight into the tragedy that we had on our hands. Okay, then. Okay, so that's our program today, then. Do please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folari. Bye-bye for now.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV. Do you struggle with having an active and healthy lifestyle due to your